Oh, great. It's so great to be back here at Olympic Toys, and Mary just runs such a great operation here with Tea Party. So, Mary, thank you. And I have to tell you, I never really was getting excited about the auditor job, but man, Ryan works his tail off, and every one of these events, he's here all over the state, and you know, he doesn't have someone running against him, but he doesn't let that stop him. So, Ryan, your hats off to you for working and doing it right. So, you know, before I get started, I want to reference, was it Adam? I was really impressed, Adam, with your delivery, your knowledge, and man, I tell you, if you know, Turning Point focuses on colleges and university students, and they should get college credit after attending one of your sessions. But one of the things I want to highlight that he brought to our attention was this idea of what happened in the Republican Party with Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War. Because what's interesting about the Minnesotans that actually went to battle in that Civil War, the first Minnesota Volunteers, was one regiment, at that battle in Gettysburg. I tell you, we nearly lost that battle. Most Americans don't understand that reading the after effects, there was no other military unit between the Confederates and the U.S. Capitol. And if we would have lost that, it would have just been rolled up. And the first Minnesota Volunteers played a key role in helping us win that battle. In fact, unfortunately, it cost the first Minnesota Volunteers 80% casualty rate of that unit. It's the largest percentage of an Army unit that was lost in battle in the Civil War, largest one in history in the Civil War, and in the United States Army to this very day. And I tell people this because I'm a student of history, and we all should be. Students are not getting it, young people are not getting it. Standing before you today is a descendant of those American black slaves freed from bondage because of those Minnesota Volunteers. Minnesota was not a slave state. They did this out of duty. They did this out of the country we were, and what was right at the time. So, as a descendant of those slaves, you know, it's an honor. But I stand in the fight right now because we're dealing with the fight of our own time. You know, when I was in the Army and I pledged an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, I never really thought that the domestic side was pertinent. I had no idea to this very day that we are dealing with a battle in our own country against people that want to turn our country into something it was never intended to be. And I am honored, and I feel it's a privilege. I think that, you know, we're all connected through history to be able to fight this next battle for our country and to return it back to its origins of what our founders wanted. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kendall Qualls, and I tell people I even shouldn't be here tonight. You know, the odds are that a kid from a broken family that grew up part of his childhood in Harlem, New York in the late 1960s with his divorced mother, and then later lived with his father in Oklahoma in the trailer park, wouldn't graduate from high school, go to college, become an Army officer, raised 5 kids with his wife of 36 years, and by the way, homeschooled those kids. And by the way, adopted one of them, but we can't remember which one because we love them all the same. And odds are that kid would start out at the ground floor of a major corporation in this country and rise up and become a vice president of a Fortune 100 company. They'll tell you that story doesn't exist. But it does exist. Not only did that kid do all of that, but actually became a candidate for the Republican Party in the great state of Minnesota. And I can tell you, the left wants to squelch that idea of the American dream. In fact, it's a war against it right here in our state and across the country. I'll give you 3 examples. 2 years ago, Minneapolis was ground zero for all the rioting, looting, defund the police, Black Lives Matter. And Keith Ellison, Ilhan Omar was in the center of it. And our governor allowed that to go for 3 days unabated. They talk about absence on duty, you know, AWOL on duty, right? No leadership. 3 days unabated. 2 years later, we're still suffering from record crime We have women getting beaten in parking lots and getting their cars stolen, and children getting shot in their neighborhoods nearly every day. That didn't used to happen to us here. We were never in Detroit. We were never in Chicago. And trust me, when we win, in our first administration, when we win, that will begin to change overnight. Trust me, that's number one. Number two, the next example of that war against us is that we have one of the highest tax burdens in the country in this state. Qualls does nothing to alleviate that. We have people leaving the state they love, the state they helped build, in record numbers. Last year was the highest number of Minnesotans leaving the state in 30 years. And I think many of you know people, and hopefully, you might be one of them. If we don't win this next election, there's going to be a lot more leaving. Now is not the time to turn to career politicians to help fix and overhaul our tax code. This is why we need a leader from outside of politics, a leader from the private sector with private sector solutions. And lastly, I think all of us are really getting tired of being bullied by the woke left, this idea of cancel culture. And what they're teaching our kids in school is evil. It's downright evil, and trying to divide our kids. And every time we talk about election integrity, they wave this banner of racism. And I tell people this: having lived in the Jim Crow segregated South, my parents and grandparents would have loved to have grown up in the America I grew up in. This is the least racist time in American history, and we're the least racist country in the world. They're not going to use that excuse anymore. I tell people this: I've been a Republican since I was 18 years old, and I never looked back. And I'm proud to be a Republican. And I'm going to fight tooth and nail to save our country because of this. This is the main reason I'm in, because here's the scenario. Americans don't back down from a fight, and God's people stand up against evil. That's what he expects, and that's what I'm doing. And another part of this, I'm doing this because, you know what? I'm really sick and tired of Ron DeSantis having all the fun. And it's time that Minnesotans get in on some of this liberty and freedom action. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell people this. I speak all over the state and all over the country. I'm so glad that Mary does these events, and I see it in your heart and your tenacity. But a lot of Americans have forgotten what it means to be American. It's dormant. It's gone dormant. I'm reawakening them. And this idea, like our national anthem, that last line of our national anthem, land of the free, home of the brave, well, it's high time we start acting like it. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to go through real quick the 6 things that we're going to do in 6 months, and then we'll open it up for questions. So this is on the website. So again, private sector, transparency, accountability, it's on the website. We'll check down the list when we get them done. Okay, number 1, no mask mandates, no vaccine mandates. That's number 1. Any state institution trying to implement that would get their funds pulled. Number 2, we're going to get our cities back. We're going to hire 300 to 400 law enforcement officers at the state level, and they're going to be deployed in the Twin Cities, whether the city council wants them there or not. And if we need to hire more in other cities, we'll do that, because the crime is spreading beyond the Twin Cities. You know what? That is such. I'm going to just take a pause here. I don't know if you saw this in the Star Tribune. I have to read it now. I'm the candidate, so that's the only reason. But today I was reading that the governor is going to redeploy state troopers and deploy them in the Twin Cities. Look, I had this on my website 4 months ago, and I'm just glad he's taking the idea. But I have to collaborate, and I have to applaud him, because talk about bipartisan collaboration. He's implementing one of my ideas even before I get into office. I'm like, great. So when I get into office, that one already be taken care of. We just have to expand it and make it permanent. But I'm glad he's doing one of those. He can do all 6, so we can just get up and running when we get in. But that was just announced today in the Star Tribune that those law enforcement officers are going to be redeployed, and he's been holding back against doing that because he knows what's coming this election year.
So that's number two. Number three, the tax rates are there. You can look at the tax rates. Do you know that our lowest tax rate is higher than 23 other states' highest tax rate? We're going to collapse those four brackets to two. We're going to reduce business taxes from 9.8 to 7. We're going to eliminate the Social Security tax, and we're going to eliminate the death tax. Okay. Number four, school choice. Wherever the student goes, the dollars goes with the student, and we're going to make sure that the government regulations, that thing gets cut. It doesn't follow the kids, even for homeschool families, they want to use it. Okay? Voter ID, we're going to make sure from election integrity, we're going to have voter ID, manual count with paper ballots. Okay, that is it. We're going to make sure that even if the electronic machines are working, the issue is not the machines. The issue is if the citizens don't have confidence in it, then we don't do it. And until we get enough of an objectivity of a certification on the machines that the populace says, yes, we're okay, that's when we move forward. Not just because, hey, trust me, the machines are okay. You have a right to know and that you're confident your vote's going to be counted, whether your candidate wins or loses. And lastly, we're going to curtail emergency powers. It's already on the website. We're going to restrict it. And this is my pledge to you directly. And we're going to restrict it, whether it's 30 days, 10 days, 7 days, 1 day, it doesn't matter. I'm going to sign most severe restrictions on emergency powers, not just for myself, but for any governor that follows. We have seen what happens when a tyrant has access to those type of things. And guess what? It was never intended for that to happen in the first place. It's never going to happen again. Now, here's I'm going to address this one issue. People say, well, Kendall, why don't you sign the pledge? I'm not going to outsource my trust, my oath, my pledge, my commitment to a third-party organization. My oath, my commitment is to you personally. To you as the voter, you have mine. So we're going to do that. It's on our website in that pledge. And like I said, I'm not outsourcing that to anyone. It's a commitment and it's an oath to you. All right. And as I close, I want to share this last comment. I am so grateful that for all of you guys have been committed here for 13 years. As we look what's happening in our country, what they're pushing with critical race theory, this whole narrative, this truth detector department, what they're pushing in the military, guys, this agenda, either they're going to win, or the country we love and know they want to prevail. One of the two is going to happen. Both of them can't coexist. And I wanted to be on record to know what side Kendall Qualls was standing in the history books. That I was standing on the side of our country, on the right of God, because what's over there is evil, and it's not what our founders wanted. And we're going to make sure that we protect it. I think with your help, we can do that. Thank you.
Got time for a question or two quick ones? I know you've got a loud voice.
Mr. Qualls, within the last week, the Minnesota Post Board Police Officer Standard and Training has announced that they believe it's a good idea to train and hire non-citizens as police officers in our city. I want to know what your reaction is to that and what you believe should be done about it.
Well, first of all, I don't know why they should train non-citizens to be police officers when non-citizens shouldn't be here in the first place. I mean, if anything, they got a temporary. If they're here, they're here temporarily. And look, if we have a governor that's sending some of these guys to Washington D.C., maybe we can have another bus that sends direction to the West Coast. I say that in jest, but I say that seriously. We're going to do a major retake of this. I'm tired of playing defense. You know, we can't keep coming up with a legislation and a bill for this bill because they're constantly hitting the ball at us, and we're constantly playing defense. You're going to see offensive direction to protect our state, protect our country. If you want to see it, you're going to see offense from this administration. in a bold way that, changes the nature of the game. Yeah.
One more.
Man.
I have a question. You worked with Johnson & Johnson at one point? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, what division did you work in?
Okay, what's the question? So the question was, he asked if I worked for Johnson & Johnson. So what's the question behind the question?
I guess I'm asking is the mask mandate and vaccine and stuff, is there anything that you could have seen before that came along?
So I worked for Johnson & Johnson from 1990 to 2000. So that was over 22 years ago.
Oh.
So I'm not clairvoyant in any. I have a lot of powers. Is that what it is? But I don't know.
That's fine.
All right, I think Mary had a question. You can have.
Okay.
Real quick, have you chosen a running mate? Just out of curiosity.
So the question is running mate. I've interviewed two great people, that I would be honored to have on the ticket. And here's something I can just share with you. Bold, good, strong leaders are first of all, they have self-awareness. I know my blind spots, I know my weaknesses, and I want to have people around me that complement those blind spots and those weaknesses. So you're going to have a rock-solid team. We're going to hit the ground running, and we're going on offense for a change because I'm so darn tired of playing defense. But we will have people on the team ready to go. If they not sure we're going to announce it. We'll see, but we'll have it to stand by. Guys, it's going to be fun. It is time for us to start having a little fun on our side. It's high time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.